Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 67 of 2024. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media / the Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by Circa Sports. For the biggest football contests in all the land, please visit circasports.com/contest for over 16 million in guaranteed prizes. If you'd like to support the Oddsbreakers and benefit from our premium plays, please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. Pick any of our winning cappers to get their premium plays before the line moves. You can also support us at patreon.com. If nothing else, please visit the Oddsbreakers and become a free picks and Telegram subscriber. We have a great show for you today because NFL Week 1 is finally here, and no better person to bring on than Will Hill from VSiN and the Should Have Bet More podcast. Can't wait to talk to Will. Whenever Will starts the season with me on this show, we seem to do very good. So very excited to talk to Will and get his takes on NFL Week 1. We also have a special guest from this season, the largest group of entrants in football contests is at the SZN.com. You can get into those contests with a huge discount through the Odds Breakers. We also have a free Survivor contest, guaranteed $250 or more. If we get more than 25 people, we're going to up that. And we're giving that completely free to anybody that listens to this show, anybody on our newsletter. Just go to the SZN.com/OB. And you can also get into the other contests if you want, but free Survivor, free chance to win. And we're also going to talk some college football. I'm going to start with college football, and then we're going to get into, at the end of the show, the sharp side of the force. Refuse to lose teaser that went 11-7 last year as well. That refuse to lose teaser wins all the time. It hasn't lost yet on this show for a season. If anything, maybe you should just bet the refuse to lose teaser, even though we did really well on the free picks last year. I mean, but that thing is money. So I'm excited for our refuse to lose teaser once again. And we're going to add a little bit to the show too. We're going to call it beer money bets. You know, just maybe one long shot at the end that you might have some value. Maybe it's a Heisman bet. Maybe it's like Coach of the Year or something like that. We're going to add that a little bit in the show to spice it up as well. So can't wait for this season. I'm so excited for football. Just got started. I'm on a 9-3 start to college football premium. Some of those were free plays as well. Hopefully we can keep that running. And every single week, we're going to talk college football, NFL football, fantasy football, just like we do every single season. All right, well, without further ado, let's get into college football week 2. And I hate to say it, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. College football week 2 and college football week 3 from a fan perspective really sucks because there's still a ton of FCS games involved. There is only a very few big matchups, okay? Very few. So, you know, it's just one of those situations where we kind of got to wait to get the fun big matchups going on. Yet we don't have to bet the big matchups. We can bet things that make money. You know, I am still not completely diving into a ton of bets here in college football, not just because of the non-big games, or actually not at all because of the non-big games, because I still want to get a better feeling for some of these teams. You know, a lot of these teams played FCS games last week. And, you know, hard to tell if you don't know much about the team that they beat. Doing that extra research would be impossible for me because there's just not many hours in the day, being that I focus on college football and NFL football and fantasy football. But I can at least focus more on things like the Big Ten that I like to specialize in. And I can focus more on the FBS in general. You know, I can focus more on prop bets for the NFL because we're bringing back our TikTok props as well. You can see that today on our TikTok. We'll find you a nice prop bet for Kansas City versus Baltimore. So very excited about that. But either way, we have a Friday game, and we already talked about that because we gave SMU out for at minus 11. Minus 11, it's 10.5 now, actually. I think SMU should floor BYU. I think they're a much better team, return much more production. And if you want to hear the handicap on that, you can go back to our last episode that aired on Tuesday morning. Okay. So that's already been a play. The other bigger game on Friday is Duke versus Northwestern. And the truth is that this is not a bad game, really. I mean, two kind of bottom of the barrel FBS teams. But if you remember, Duke has owned this matchup, for years. I have Northwestern minus 6.25. So why am I not betting the minus 2.5? Well, you look at the history here. You look in 2023, Duke beats them 38-14 in Duke. You look at 2022, Duke beats them 31-23 at Northwestern. 2021, Duke wins 30-23. 2018, Duke wins. 2017, Duke wins. It's always back all the way back to 2016 where Northwestern won. So the last 5 games in a row, Duke won this game. I will say that the last game at Northwestern, they outgained Duke by a pretty good amount of yards. Passing yards was 435-240. I believe it was the fumbles lost from Northwestern. They lost 2 fumbles and possibly threw a few interceptions that game. They at least threw 1 interception, and Duke threw 1 interception, but didn't lose any fumbles that game. So they outgained them and still lost. But this is 2 different teams. Duke's got a new coach now. Mike Elko is gone. Northwestern had a new coach from last year. I will say that Northwestern is a little bit on the overrated side from what they did last year. But Duke is straight up bottom of the barrel almost in the FBS, being that they lost everybody last year and they only beat Elon 26-3 last week. This is a strong lean to Northwestern. The history says not to bet Northwestern, but if anything, I would probably look for a money line in this situation. I also think it goes to 3, so I'm going to give you a strong lean here to Northwestern. Next game is a big game. Texas versus Michigan to kick off college football Saturday. Michigan's +7. And I am so low on Michigan this year that I have Texas even bigger than this. A lot of people are kind of like, really? But the truth is that Michigan is not even close to the same team as they were last year, yet Texas returns everybody. I had to give Michigan a massive downgrade, and my power rating is almost laughable because I have this more of a 10-point spread, in this situation instead of a 7. But I'm not going to bet Texas because I've seen Texas on the road enough times in my life where they should have just been stomping teams and either winning a close game or not winning at all with the same quarterback in Quinn Ewers. It's a stay away from me. But, you're looking at a team that returned a ton of production against a team that didn't return anybody, include their coach. I'm not a big Sharon guy. Okay? I'm not big on Michigan's coach yet. I think their defensive line is very good. I think Davis Warren is a serviceable quarterback. He passed pretty well last game. Alex Orji came in and did 5 rushes for 32 yards against Fresno State. But, look what Texas did to Colorado State last week. This is just, the number does not agree with a lot of power ratings out there, And I probably am a little bit too low on Michigan if I'm going to be completely honest with you. Maybe this should be a little bit closer for a spread. Let's see what Sagarin has. Jeff Sagarin has Michigan more of a Texas. About a 7. He's right on the number because he has Texas about 10 points better than Michigan. I have Texas about 13 points better than Michigan. So Sagarin's right on the number here. Sagarin does a great job, but the market really emulates power ratings like Sagarin's. I think he's one of the top ones being used. Obviously, Bill Conley's gets used a lot. Even Team Rankings has this more of a 9.5 difference. So Team Rankings would probably lean to Michigan being with that big home field advantage. So, the power ratings out there are matching the number. Mine are a little bit off. Mine say to bet Texas. I am staying away from this game. Let's look for some other big matchups here. Arkansas, Oklahoma State's kind of interesting. Oklahoma State's -7.5. I was pleasantly impressed against South Dakota State. A lot of sharper people were on South Dakota State plus the 9.5 or so. I think this went down to 8 or 7. And South Dakota State lost by like 20 to Oklahoma State, But it's another FCS situation where it's hard to gauge. I was coming in the season a little bit down on Oklahoma State, but now they're this big of a favorite against a Arkansas team that brought back Bobby Petrino to be the offensive coordinator. He was actually a really good offensive coach over the years, Arkansas was another team that, harder for me to really gauge. I do think that Talon Green could be a very good quarterback there, but he also played Arkansas Pine Bluff for their first game. I know South Dakota State's definitely better than them, So where do you gauge this? You have to go by your power ratings, right? You have to go by your power ratings. And I'm not, and to be honest with you, I'm -6. I'm not -7.5. I am -6. Am I betting it right now? Probably not. I'll wait on it and make a decision later when I talk to some more people and break the game down a little bit more. Next game, Kansas State Tulane is a really interesting spot because Kansas State has Arizona on deck, and it's probably a little bit too early to look past teams. Right now, Tulane's in a complete rebuild, and that's why you see Kansas State as a -10 chalk favorite. But the fact that Tulane's in a rebuild, I really do not know what to expect. They lost Willie Fritz, as you know, and Kansas State has been really great the last few years. They lost Will Howard to Ohio State, but Avery Johnson, 67% passing last week, 2 TDs, 1 interception, another one that I have to stay away from. Georgia Tech Syracuse is going to be really interesting because now that Boston College beat Florida State, what are we supposed to think about Georgia Tech now? Did you upgrade them too much? Is there a chance that both Georgia Tech and Boston College are that much better, or is just Florida State that much worse? I had to downgrade Florida State 6 points from the last 2 weeks. But at the same time, Syracuse did not look good last week. And I actually have Georgia Tech still as a pretty decent favorite around 5 points here, not at 2.5. But I do not like laying road chalk -2.5 when my spread's only 5. Road games are a completely different animal in college football. You got to be pretty sure about that. Syracuse beat Ohio 38-22. Georgia Tech beat Georgia State 35-12, barely covering that game. It was one, like I said, on Spaces with Kyle Hunter. Every Friday night, by the way, we'll be doing Spaces at 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern, which has been a lot of fun lately, and we've been doing very well. But I said the only way I could bet it is Georgia State, but I'm not. I'm glad I did. It was a terrible spot for Georgia Tech, yet they still covered. But here we go again. What was Georgia State? What's Syracuse here? Georgia State probably wins this game by 3 points. Maybe a little bit upside in that. But I'm also staying away from that one. I'm going to do one more premier matchup before I do the main games. And I'm going to give you a disgusting premier matchup here. I do have some premium plays and some other ones that I can't talk about, like Baylor versus Utah. And we have one on Boise State at Oregon. We have a premium play on, so I can't really get too much into that. I'll tell you that Boise State's offense was amazing last week, and Their defense was bad, but Oregon's defense was actually pretty good, but their offense looked like crap. One of those situations where there's going to be a lot of overreaction and a lot of people taking Boise. One thing I learned about college football is it's hard. If you want to be a losing bettor, then bet against the team that looked bad last week and bet on the team that looked good last week. You do that in college football, you're probably going to be a loser. Best to do the opposite of that. So you're going to see all this public money coming in out of Boise State, Oregon. Boise State is now plus 19.5. Actually, some sharp money hit Oregon earlier. It was 17.5. But I do expect a bunch of public money later. It's such a night game kind of coming in that game itself. And I also have a premium play on, this one moved. This is not premium. This is a premium and a free play I was going to get. I'll get into that. USC, by the way, in a horrible spot after beating LSU, playing at home against Utah State. Staying the hell away from that one. It's a little early for a letdown, but you never know. It can happen. But Utah State is quite a bad team. Getting into this next one, Iowa State versus Iowa.
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Hell to the no, hell to the no, to the no, no, no.
Yep. It's a terrible game if you like offense. You're looking at like a 35-point total, which is proven way too high for big Iowa games from last year. But at the same time, 20-17 beats this. What a disgusting game. It's been 2.5 for a while. Now there's more Iowa money coming in. The only way I bet this, and if you've been listening to this show for a long time, I always take the dog as long as it's 3 or more. Always in this game. No exceptions. I do not need to rush into this because I'm also cool with not betting it. But right now, Iowa State's +3 -115 on DraftKings. Total's still at 35. This game is putrid. And I know Iowa got a new offensive coordinator in Tim Lester, who used to coach Western Michigan, who was an offensive-based team, if you remember, in the MAC. But this team, best yards per play on defense, worst in all of football in yards per play on offense. You still can't trust them scoring a lot. At least Iowa State showed some heart last year. But another problem with Iowa State is they looked bad last week. They didn't look like the team that you can trust beating North Dakota 21-3. But I will say this. You have to remember that they are probably very vanilla last week because they had the Iowa game on deck. And I should have talked about that last week. Maybe I should have had our look-ahead spots because it does factor in sometimes look-ahead when teams like Oregon probably was a little bit shy to give up their playbook against Idaho, which almost cost them the game. And then you've seen teams like possibly Michigan was a little bit shy in the beginning. That wasn't a big game. Maybe they have more in their playbook. But Iowa State looks like maybe they also didn't just give up their playbook. And that's why you're seeing money coming in Iowa. I will be taking the +3 on either side. It's probably going to be Iowa State. Obviously, I don't see this thing flipping. But, just know that I'm not giving it away yet on this show. I'm waiting to see if I get a 3.5. Okay. So this is a team in Iowa State last year that was better than expectations. They're +1 yard per play, which was fantastic. Sure, they lost their bowl game at Memphis. Some guys didn't play, but they did go to Kansas State and beat them. They only lost to Texas by 10 points at home, a very great Texas team. They smoked BYU. Barely lost to Kansas by 1 score. 1 at Baylor, 1 at Cincinnati. This team is a gritty team, and I expect them to be in this game all the way to the end. I lean to the under, but I'm probably going to be taking Iowa State. But let's go on to the games that I'm going to give out for plays. And that is going to start with Mississippi State versus Arizona, and it's a late game. Let's see if the number moved on me again. It's against Arizona State, not Arizona. I'm sorry. It's still 6.5. Total went up, though, to 59.5. So I have to adjust this. I still like it, though, because I was pretty far off, in my opinion. This should be a pretty exciting game. Coach Jeff Lebby comes in to the Bulldogs after being the offense coordinator for Oklahoma and for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss before that. You know what that means. Speed, baby. These teams play at a fast pace. Oklahoma played at a fast pace last year, and you know how Lane Kiffin plays. Speed is what he knows, and I expect a ton of offense. Kelly Dillingham had a rough first year at Arizona State, but they looked pretty motivated last week against Wyoming. They put up over 40 points in the first half. Even though the Sun Devils were not good last year and they had to slow it down a little bit, they're still top 45 in plays per game, and I expect that to increase with a much better offense now. You know, situation here, okay? Better offense. I do not expect either of these defenses to be any good. I know that they stopped Wyoming, but that was at home. It was more about Wyoming looking terrible. I was down by the campus last week, as a matter of fact, at ASU with the family. But on defense, the Bulldogs only returned one starter. And that's the only they had last year on defense was that. Now they have a new coach and an offensive mind. The Sun Devils only returned 3 starters on defense. They allowed 6 yards per play last year. I'm taking the over. I peg both of these teams as over teams for 2024 until I see something different. I'm going to move it from 57 to 59.5. I'm going to be honest with you. I think I gave it away at like 58 or something like that. And I'll tell you right now what I gave it away. Let me pull up my preview plays. Yeah, I gave this away at 58.5, and it dropped to 57, which was pissed me off pretty good. But now it's at 59.5, so I think I was on the right side of that. Over 59.5 for 2 stars.
Freaking niggas every way like MJ.
Next game, Bowling Green versus Penn State. Penn State's minus 3 and 34.5. Total is 48.5. There's a lot of momentum for Penn State after a nice win, but is it really momentum going against a terrible school like Bowling Green? The funny thing about Bowling Green is they're not terrible anymore. They were for the last 10 years or so. But this is a 5-touchdown spread now. You know, I'm just not so sure. The Falcons were solid last year. They won 5 of their last 6 regular season games. They only lost to MAC champion Toledo by 1 point and did very well in their bowl game against the Gophers. They lost, but they did well, lost by 1 score. They returned 73% of their offense, 58% of their defense. They're a decent 0.2 net yards per play last year, which is a huge improvement from what they were. Now, Penn State is a team that improved too. They got Andy Kotelnicki from Kansas as their offensive coordinator, and it showed against West Virginia. Their defense was locked down. But in saying that, I can just feel that this is a little bit of a slow, flat, letdown spot, even after the first week. Because they have like 3 weeks before they play someone with a pulse. And does Illinois even have a pulse? I'm not so sure about that. But they have Bowling Green, Kent State up next. Bowling Green, I think, a bye, and then Kent State. This is a very backdoorable game if you're down by 40. You know, if you're down by 40, Penn State not going to be playing their starters when they're up by over 30 points. I mean, the only thing that fears me is that Franklin loves to cover. You know, that's the only problem. But he's also smart enough to know that he needs this season more than a whale needs water in the desert. You know, this guy knows that he's got a Big Ten schedule ahead of him. He knows he has to stay healthy. The backups might try to win, but Bowling Green is going to be trying to win this game as well. This is a little bit too much for me. So I will be taking Bowling Green, and I'm going to tell you what my number is right now. It is about 29. I have Bowling Green a 29-point dog, not a 34.5-point dog in this situation. Take Bowling Green. Falcons plus the 34.5 for 2 stars.
Get busy living or get busy dying. That's goddamn right.
All right, my friends. Bowling Green plus 34.5. Mississippi State, Arizona State over 59.5. Time for our next guest from this season. Let's talk some football contest with Peter Simones. All right, now I'm very happy to welcome back the CEO and commissioner of this season in Mr. Peter Simones. You can follow them on Twitter at _SZN. Peter, thanks for coming back on the show. It is the week of the NFL, my man. What's going on?
Yeah, always love being here. Thanks for having me. I'm a born and bred Packers fan, and they're playing in Brazil in 2 days, and that still hasn't really registered with me. But I love the notion that the Packers are just going to become the team of Brazil. That's what my future reading is, and I hope that they start that journey on Friday.
Well, it is a long ways away. It's not quite as far as Europe, I don't think, but yeah, it's crazy that they're playing in Brazil. They need to be safe out there for sure. I hear that there's extra security going on out there, but I'm a Bears fan, as you remember, so I'm not I'm not exactly like as anti-Packer as some Bears fans. If I bet on the Packers, I want them to win as a sports bettor, But I think that's just so unique this week. I don't even know what the spread is unique. Everything's unique about that game, and I don't know. I can't imagine too many survivors are going to be picking this game. What do you think?
No, not at all. Yeah, if you're in a survivor pool, and it's usually this way, is that the opening game on Thursday, and now they have this additional game on Friday. Almost never is that a matchup that looks good from a survivor pool standpoint.
Absolutely, in such a foreign place. Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about the season again, man. For any new listeners out there, and there are quite a few, and anybody that just forgot, let's talk real quick about the season, how it got started, and what you offer to people around the world.
Yeah, totally. We're called The Season. Kev will put a link down in the description, but if you like what we're talking about, you can go to www.theszn.com/OB. And we've got some special offers for you there. But The Season, we do sports pools, and we like to think that we do sports pools better than anybody else. We have very big prizes. It's a very sort of budget-friendly price point of $10 for any pool that we do, and further discounts if you buy our bundles of pools. We run some of the biggest player account pools out there. So we've done NFL survivor pools that have 12,000 people. This year, we pay $50,000 to one person who's going to be our big NFL survivor champ. One thing that's unique is we ensure a single champion for every pool that we do. We don't do ties. We have ways that we structure the pools that are simple but unique, that produces a champion who likes ties. So one person is going to win $50,000. We pay tons of places for every pool, so you don't have to be the winner in order to cash. And as you and I like to talk about, Kiev, we do some formats that you don't see anywhere else. So we've invented some formats that are turns on the things that Survivor, Pick'em, props, and we've taken them and we've made them sort of seasonified, as we like to say, and in ways that we just think is super fun. So if you're somebody who enjoys sort of following sports with a little bit of something on the line, and you want to do it in a budget-friendly way that allows you to have fun, but also maybe win something really big, The Season is a great option for you, and we'd love to have you.
Oh, absolutely. It's affordable. You don't have to travel, and you have a bunch of contests right in front of you, which is awesome. And I love the fact that you have guarantees. $50,000 to first place and over 100,000 guaranteed payouts throughout the whole pool, which is fantastic. But it's not just that situation. You have the big survivor. That's the biggest one, right? And that's probably what everyone talks about the most.
Yep. It's we've been doing it for 16 years. This is our 16th year doing the big survivor. It's certainly what made us famous. Not just the fact that we do it, but we do a lot of fun content. We have a lot of community that we built around this. And I think the people that have been with The Season for a long time, they look at us, they're just like, you're just more fun than anything else. And they often do it with their friends and with their coworkers. And so they have groups of folks that have been in this thing for a long time. And it becomes sort of a social event of like, hey, who can last the longest in Survivor? And if you have somebody who's in it deep into the year, it's really fun to root for them, right? Because they have a shot at something really big. So yeah, Survivor is the biggest one that we do, but we have 11 NFL pools in total. We have 215,000 in guaranteed prizes across those 11 pools. And like I said, each one is just $10, but you can do a bundle. For instance, we do the full bundle of all 11 pools. That we actually have a special for Odds Breakers listeners that you can get that entire thing for just $50. So it's basically more than half off if you were to buy each of those pools individually. And yeah, Survivor, we do loser Survivor. So same concept, except, you're picking a team to lose, arguably harder than traditional Survivor. And we do some fun stuff like a quarterback one and done, where you pick one quarterback each week and you get his passing yards, but you can only use each quarterback once. And so there's a dance, especially with like quarterback injuries, which was a big deal last year. Of, do you try to use your big guns early? How do you sort of sneak in a mediocre quarterback when they're playing a terrible defense? So some fun strategy stuff where all of our pools have a similar theme of it's really simple to pick. You can do it in a minute a week, right? But if you want to dive into the strategy and really think about the nuance, that's available to you.
Absolutely. And I'm going to share my screen here. There is just so much fun involved. Like just 7 minutes ago, somebody posts and the Saints go marching on. It's this big board of where people talk smack back to each other. They also kind of give ideas, throw some curveballs on all these competitions that are going on. So when you talk about fun, Peter, this is exactly what it is. People just having a blast on it. It's more of a community based thing. So people just really enjoy interacting with it and going back and forth. And you can have these little mini groups too, where it's your buddies get together and talk and compete just against each other too. That's what I love about the format, and that's kind of what you were talking about here on how people just love how fun it is in the first place. And yeah, Big Survivor is definitely the biggest one, over $100,000 worth of payouts, but the whole thing over $200,000 worth of payouts. And there's a lot of fun other stuff. And one thing we're sponsoring is Loser Survivor at the Odds Breakers. And what's great about Loser Survivor is harder. I think it's harder. I mean, there's only a few bad teams, and once you burn them out, it's like you're picking the loser of these games. And a lot of times it might not even go to week 18 when it comes to Loser Survivor. And it just gets very, very tedious. You can't pick on a team all year. You have to find losers, and that is quite tough. And what are your thoughts on Loser Survivor? How far does it usually make it?
Yeah, you're correct that it usually, I think actually in all cases, it has ended before the traditional Survivor. It is hard. I mean, listen, I think that there's always nuance, right? But the basic traditional Survivor strategy is sort of, you just got to find a way to survive the first 3 to 4 weeks when things are shaking out. You don't know, who's truly good, who's truly bad. A lot of sort of the sharps, if you will advise you to make some of your safer picks early on, even though you might feel like, am I wasting a good team? Because once you get to week 4, you kind of know who the really bad teams are. And then you can start to settle in and just pick against those teams repeatedly. That's traditional Survivor.
Yeah.
In Loser Survivor, you don't have that benefit. You can't just continue picking on the same terrible teams. And like the best teams in the league might still end up with 5-6 losses. So it's not like you can just continue to pick the teams that are playing against those best teams. So you just have fewer good options, or fewer, quote, safe options on a weekly basis. And yeah, it always ends before the traditional Survivor in terms of week crowned a champion.
I challenge everybody to try this out. Get on this page and do this Loser Survivor. It is a ton of fun. Let's talk about some of the other contests then. So that quarterback pick them once a week. So is it the most passing yards, and you kind of add it all up at the end? Is that how that works?
Exactly. Yeah, it's pick one quarterback. You get the passing yards. We have a bit of a wrinkle where, just to simplify it, we give so you pick the quarterback, you get the team's passing yards. So we do that because nobody loves a notion where a quarterback goes down with a single season-ending injury in the first quarter, and then sort of your pick for that week is blown. So we will give you the backup's passing yards if he gets in there. But largely speaking, pick the quarterback, earn his yards, and then we have an overall competition all 18 weeks. And then we have prizes for individual intervals first 6 weeks, middle 6 weeks, final 6 weeks. So a big way that we structure pools at the season is to try to keep you having fun and keep you in the game and having something to play for, even if you're not doing great in the overall standings, or even if you're not doing great in one pool. We have this other pool that gives you something to get excited about, gives you something to pick. And so that's part of why we do these intervals. But yeah, again, super basic at face value, but there's a lot of strategy that you could choose to get into about which quarterbacks you use at which time. Are you picking quarterbacks because you think the offense is great and the quarterback is great, or are you picking against a weak secondary or against a team that you don't feel has much to play for? So those are the things that go into that. One other one I'll give a shout out is we have what we call our all 32 one and done. So in the first 4 weeks, you just pick a team to win. And then in the remaining weeks, you pick 2 teams to win. And you can only use each team once. And so what that means is you will use every NFL team exactly once. And then you get a basic win-loss record out of 32 picks. And whoever does the best wins that pool.
So it's not like Survivor where you're still in it, even if you mess up, right?
Exactly. Even if you lose week 1, even if you lose first 2 weeks, you're still in it. The whole game is at the end, which person has the most wins. And what's fascinating is that in these pools, we do them for every sport. What we see is that people will jump out to leads early on. They might even be 16-0, 17-0, 18-0, but it's really hard to do that unless you've been using all of the best teams. And so a very common thing is that we'll see huge standing shakeups in the last 5 to 6 weeks of the year when some of the people at the top of the leaderboard have ran out of teams, hoping they're going to get lucky at the end. And they don't. They keep losing several weeks in a row. And then people who had saved a lot of the teams and were strategic about it, that comes and pays off, and they rise up and win. And so last year, I think our champ was 27-5. So won the entire pool despite losing 5 games. But I believe that they were 20-5, and then they won their last 7 and rose up from lower in the standings to take it.
Huge. I mean, huge comeback. They probably saved teams like the Ravens, maybe the Chiefs, how they made such a big push at the end, some of those teams, Dallas, that's what they probably did. And that's what's so fun about it. What's great is like you get out of Big Survivor, you still are having fun with all these pools, and you can still talk back and forth. And that's what's so cool about it. What else makes these unique and these fun for our listeners or anybody that wants to get in?
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing, and we've been doing podcasts for several years now, and we love the Odds Breakers. And we decided this year that we wanted to give some love to all of you who are listening out there. And so we partnered to put together a free Odds Breakers a Survivor pool that is its own thing just for the listeners and subscribers of the Odds Breakers that pays out guaranteed prizes. And all you have to do is go to www.theseason.com/OB. We'll put the link in the comments. Create a simple season account with your email, join that free pool, and boom, you've got something that you might win. You're in a community of other Odds Breakers listeners, and you get a taste of what the season is all about. So that's out there. You should definitely go do that. It'll take you 30 seconds to a minute to make that happen. And then, of course, as I said, we're also offering an even bigger discount on our bundles of pools where for Odds Breakers listeners, you can go to that same link and you'll see an offer to get all 11 of our NFL pools, all 215,000 in guaranteed prizes, tons of chances to win throughout the Super Bowl. And you get it for $50. I don't think there's a better deal out there in terms of value for your money, in terms of the fun that you get from it. And so that's a special for Odds Breakers listeners on top of just the free pool that everyone should go join right now.
Yeah, it's free completely. Minimum $250 payout. Now, if we get more than 25 people, we're going to up it and put money out of our own pockets, obviously. As people sign up with my link too, that's when we're going to start upping it as well. So right now it's just minimum free $250 no matter what, but that's going to go up as people join. And that's just for Odds Breakers listeners and people that follow us on our website. I'm actually tweeting that out right now at the Odds Breakers. So if you guys want to get in on that, you can just click on the link on the tweet. And obviously we're going to have all this at our descriptions on the bottom when this posts to YouTube, when this posts to the website, theoddsbreakers.com. So make sure you check it out. And obviously, it's scrolling across the bottom, which is awesome. So in saying this, man, last thing about your big Survivor, there's only one winner every single year, isn't there?
Only one. We do that with all our pools. We don't believe in ties. No damn ties on the season. We will crown a champion at every pool. A lot of other places will advertise this big money, but really they end up splitting it between 150 people. We don't do that. When you look at our prize table, the amount listed on the champion line, one person is going home with that. So one person is going to win $50,000. The big Survivor pays 700 places. And we have 2,000 places total paid across those 11 pools. So you don't have to win to make some money. Even if you don't make money, you'll have a ton of fun. But yes, one person is going to win that big Survivor and take home $50,000.
Hopefully it's you. I mean, yeah, that is what we all feel. Hopefully it is us. But no, it'd be great if one of our listeners did that. And it's prestigious to do, and you become legendary immediately. It's an amazing site, theseason.com, and that is the szn.com. Go to /OB to get in our free pool, plus get the huge discount that they're offering. Peter, thank you so much for coming on and breaking this down. I'm very excited for football this week. Best of luck to you.
Thank you. Happy football, man. Always great to come on the podcast. Thanks for having me.
Now I'm very excited to welcome back a wonderful Sports Better podcast host and good friend of the show, and Mr. Will Hill from Bear Bets, VSiN, and the Should Have Bet More podcast. You can follow Will on Twitter at @TheWillHill. Here we are, Will. The NFL starts tomorrow, dude. How's it going?
Yeah, it's that sounds great to hear. It feels good to say. The NFL starts tomorrow. It's funny because it's so year round, especially when you're in our business and doing content. And it's like you get a little lull around March Madness. Then before you know it, it's the draft, and shortly after that, the schedule comes out, and we're all looking for edges, whether it's season win totals, week one lines, and it's it's like we've studied for the test all year. Now we finally get to take the test. Are we right on this team? Are we right on this game? So it's certainly an exciting time of the year, a busy time of the year, because Thursday night game, Friday night game. We've got a few college football games. I don't know if you noticed, but there's college football played in America, and we get quite a few of those games. And that's why it's just once it gets here, it's all consuming, man. You look up and you blink, and it's like week 6 before you know it. You got to enjoy it.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. And already digging into college football. It's it is not too many big marquee games yet, but that's okay. There's value there. Obviously, your podcast focuses a little bit on both NFL, college, everything, really, everything sports betting. Speaking of the Should Have Bet More podcast, can you remind any current listeners and tell any new listeners what that show's about?
Yeah, betting show. Always have great guests. I've had you on. Anywhere from guys like Ian Eagle to Chris the Bear, Felica, Gil Alexander. Just sometimes it's more sports talk radio. For the most part, it's betting and good bettors and good betting content 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday they release. Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Just out of my 100th episode today, and actually,
congrats!
I posted a tweet. Anyone that goes and leaves a review, leave your Twitter handle, doing a little giveaway. Going to pick 2 winners. If you leave a review on Apple, I'm going to pick 2 random people and give away $100. So go check that out.
Well, listen to that. That's wonderful. Make sure you go over there and do that. Get a free 100 bones. Support my man Will over here. That'd be awesome. What's cool about yours too is there's not a lot of people that record on Sundays. It's kind of like their off day. But Will's working on Sunday. He's got a show he's putting out, and it hits Monday morning, which is I think a good advantage for you guys too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's different in the summer because, you can do these previews a little more evergreen. Now you got to go based on the games and, react to the Thursday night game and react to these games. So now it's a little more, I don't know, you never get too old for that back to school feeling. I'm sure you certainly feel it too, where once football starts, man, it's business, and you got to be paying attention. And the lazy, relaxing summer, is over. It's time to go back to work.
Absolutely. And speaking of back to school, there's plenty of opportunity for us to get schooled because there's just been so much noise going on this summer, as we always know. There's a lot of consensus out there on who's going to be bad, who's going to be good. Everyone hates the Patriots. Don't everybody? It just seems like so we're going to be shocked like we were last year with the Houston Texans. I feel like that's going to happen, and why don't we talk a little bit about? And now, I'm not saying we're going to be completely floored or anything, but maybe. And I think we talked about this back in June when we were on last. Give me an overrated team in the NFL, and then maybe an underrated afterwards. I'm curious, like where you disagree in the market, because I look at my numbers and there's disagreement with me. So where are you disagreeing?
Go Green Bay. I don't feel like extremely passionate. I don't know. They're one of these teams like we're giving an awful lot of benefit of the doubt for, I don't know, like 5 or 6 weeks of really good football from Jordan Love. And of course, that's natural when we reacted to the last thing we saw, and they had an impressive win in the playoffs at Dallas against the Cowboys. Should have beaten the 49ers. Then they would have been in the NFC Championship game where anything could have happened. I don't know. I still remember them losing to the Giants on Monday night, not playing well the first half of the season, issues with the run defense, issues with the kicker. So I think they're good. Look, I'd like to have Love on my team, but I don't know, highest paid quarterback and all this money and all this benefit down. I do feel like Green Bay, expecting them, just penciling them in for their 9-10 wins. I'm not so sure. Plus, they don't have a backup quarterback. Anytime you're trading for Malik Willis, do you think, all right, if Jordan Love goes down, we can plug in Malik Willis for 3 or 4 games? I don't know about that.
I didn't understand that. He can't be his backup right off the bat here, is he? Man, that's dangerous because Malik Willis has been terrible in the NFL. Now, don't get me wrong. He had a rough offensive coordinator, and maybe Vrabel is just more run focused. I don't know, but still, that shows a red flag to me. And a lot of these teams that have bad backup quarterbacks, you saw it with like the Baltimore Ravens and a few others. It's dangerous for them to go down. If they lose their quarterback for 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, or maybe the season, it could be curtains for some of these teams. So, totally agree with that one. Overrated team for me. I'm going to go with Washington. I don't know why. And this kind of feeds into what we're going to talk about later when we go over hit each game real quick. I just don't understand why all of a sudden they're average. I feel like they're getting treated average because if you look at the spread with Tampa Bay, who was a playoff team last year, and sure, you can say they're playoff by default because they're in the NFC South. But still, it's a 3-point spread. And I know there's only 1.5 points or so for home field advantage these days. But, I mean, still, it's just like all of a sudden you get Jaden Daniels and a new coach and Dan Quinn and everything is freaking fixed. So right. I'm going to go with them on the overrated side myself. Any comments on that, or do you want to go into underrated?
We can go underrated.
Let's go underrated. Who you got for underrated?
To me, I still think Minnesota is a little bit underrated just because I do like their 53 now. There's some questions. How many games are you getting out of TJ Hawkinson? How many games are you getting Jordan Addison? When does that suspension hit? But I really like that coaching staff. I think Brian Flores, if it weren't for some of the ways he handles his exit in Miami, and not that he was wrong, but he'd probably be a head coach somewhere because he's tough. He got blood out of a stone last year with that Minnesota defense. And I think O'Connell's a good offensive coach, a good quarterback coach. The fact that they could flirt with the playoffs last year after being 1-4 and having to deal with Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins at quarterback, I just think they're well coached. I like the rest of the roster. I think they have a good offensive line, good skill guys. The defense I think will play well. Now the schedule's tough, and I don't like their quarterback, but if he can somehow just unmask this talent that Darnold has, and tap into some of that potential we think he has, which I'm skeptical that he can do. But if you can get him to play average, I think there's a lot of talent there, and only 6.5 wins, almost 2.5 to 1 to make the playoffs. I still think Minnesota is a little bit underrated. I get the schedule is very difficult, though.
100%. What's interesting to me, too, is and of course, someone could say, oh, homer play by Will. He loves the Vikings. But,
I'm a Viking fan. I actually hate the Vikings. They've tortured me my whole life.
I feel the same about the Bears, but one thing that the Bears did release was Brett Rippon, and him and Tyson Badgett looked awesome in the preseason. Don't get me wrong; they're going against third-string guys that are not making the team, but they still look pretty precise. And it wouldn't just shock me if Brett Rippon kind of jumps Nick Mullins and maybe supplants Sam Darnold at some point if Sam Darnold's not doing it. Now, I do like the roster on the Vikings. How do you not go with a guy like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Hawkinson when he comes back, right? So I think the spread move, the line move on the Giants is probably somewhat warranted. As you can see that even right now, Will, that's going up and up. Now they're 2-point favorites here against the Giants. So I kind of like that.
Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me. I'd be shocked if we got a 3, just because at 3 it'd be all right. These teams are not that far apart, and Giants are home. I don't think the 3s would last, but who knows? We might get up to 3. I did think Pick'em was a little bit slighted, a little bit short in terms of Minnesota should be a point or 2 favorite. And look, people throwing Giants in their teasers, I could certainly understand that. I don't expect the Vikings to win the game by 17 or 20 points. I would expect a closer game. So I get the Giants teaser leg aspect, and I couldn't argue that, but I do think Minnesota wins. And boy, if you look at the beginning of the schedule, if you're Minnesota, you kind of better win that game, because things do get difficult after that.
100%. And I like Andrew Van Ginkel a lot. I think he was a good pick from Florida when he's healthy. Man, he was just an absolute beast. I remember watching him back at Wisconsin, and the dude was a pass rusher extraordinaire. He can be extremely good, and so that's another reason why I like that pick. So for me, underrated. There's a lot. I think there's a lot of the top teams that are rated properly. I probably have to go more towards the bottom for underrated, and I'm going to go Denver. And just, I was impressed by Knicks in the preseason. Now it's still preseason; we can't overreact too much to it. But when I saw Sean Payton coaching in the preseason a little bit, I just kind of remembered, this is Sean Payton, man. This is a very good coach, and it's his year 2 now, and the dude kind of knows what he's doing in times. And so, I look at this team, and I probably preseason had him, it was maybe the 3rd or 4th worst team, and I'm probably a little bit higher than them on that, Will. I think that maybe they're more in the top 24, or barely getting into the 24. What about you? What do you think about Denver?
I totally agree. If we were doing the show a month ago, it would have been under nothing. I'm glad I didn't bet the under, because I haven't quite got to the over, but if I had to play it right now, I'd play the over. And I don't know if I'll get there, just because I don't. They should get 6 wins, but they're going to be underdogs so many times. Like, if I'm that high on them, I could just take them +6 this week for Seattle. Yeah. Take them plus the points these given weeks, not tie up my money, and just play them that way. And hey, they could look at Arizona last year. They covered a bunch of times, but they didn't go over their win total. So if I'm high on them, I could just take them plus the points. It would be a lean towards the over. I agree. There's some decent skill guys. The running backs, receivers, a pretty good offensive line. Some players on defense. They're always going to be pretty well coached on special teams with Westhoff and those guys. And Lutz is a good kicker. And not only is Peyton, and there's been a lot of pushback on Peyton, and it's become he's overrated. He's been labeled so overrated. He's almost being underrated. He's become very controversial too, because he's just been very outspoken. He's he likes to talk. He badmouthed the coach before him. So
yeah.
But he knows what he's doing, and he not only that, he's coaching Knicks. He was adamant, and he went out on a limb and said, "Hey, this is my guy. We love him. Backpack with all the football stuff. Killed it at the workout." I'll be interested to see, but I wouldn't be shocked if this team got to 6 or 7 wins. They got to figure they're going to beat the Raiders at some point. I mean, the Raiders sweep them every single year, so it would be a lean to the over. I'm with you.
Yeah, 100%. All right, good agreement on that one. Let's kind of just touch on some of these games, and obviously pass if you don't like it. And there's going to be some lines out there that there's some teams out there that I'm going to scratch my head a little bit on. But we'll start right away with the Thursday night football game: Baltimore versus Kansas City. Kansas City's kind of like a short 3, like a -102 in DraftKings. You got juice on the Ravens side. You got some -118s at +3. You got some -120s. Total 47. I'll just go ahead and say that I think that this is going to be more of a flat 3. Even on both sides, -110 juice on both sides. By the time kickoff happens, I just think that enough money is going to come in on the Chiefs here. But at the same time, Will, I mean, my power ratings have the Ravens as the number 1 team, and it did last year, even when it finished the season. So I know the Chiefs did some good things, but they did lose Xavier Sneed at their best cornerback, and they lost him and a couple other guys. They tend to start the league a little bit slow, and they did that last year, and maybe it's a Super Bowl hangover, call it what you want. Mahomes is still the best quarterback in football, and there's no doubt in my mind that he isn't. But Baltimore, as thin as they've gotten in some positions, especially backup quarterback and a few others, they still, I think, improve some of their offense with Henry. I mean, the dude's an absolute beast, and he's going to kind of save them in certain situations, and I think that he's also going to be good at kind of shutting teams down. Lamar is still Lamar. Last time I checked, I don't have this as 3. I have this as 2. I played the Ravens months ago, and I'm still kind of on them, Will, at +3.
Yeah, I lean towards the Chiefs here just because I worry about the Ravens' offensive line. They lost a bunch of starts. There's a lack of continuity, and the offensive line coach for the Ravens tragically passed away a few weeks ago. That can't help. And feels callous throwing that into a handicap, but it is.
Yeah.
We're sitting here discussing the games. It is part of it. Lose the defensive coordinator McDonald to the Seahawks, who that's a guy a lot of people like. And I just think the Chiefs, the scary thing for the rest of the league is, boy, they couldn't catch the ball last year, and it was kind of a down year, and they still won it. Now you're going to add Worthy. You're going to have a healthy Kelsey, at least for week 1. And I do think, and you know this from watching college football, I do think there's going to be a point very early in the season, maybe even Thursday night, where the rest of the league sees Xavier Worthy on the Chiefs and says, boy, how the hell did we let this happen? This is unfair. Because there's going to be just some plays where Worthy just runs as fast as he can. Mahomes throws it as far as he can, and we'll see what happens. And that's scary if you're a defense. And if nothing else, even if those are long foul balls and they don't quite get home, and a few of them are going to get home, you got to back your safeties up, and that leaves stuff up, open underneath. That leaves open the running game. So just directionally, I like the Chiefs. I agree. There's not a ton of value in the number, just because if you remember, the last time the Ravens played a game was in the AFC title game against the Chiefs, and the Ravens were like a 4.5, 5-point favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're an 8-point difference. Okay, different home fields and maybe 1.5, 2 each way, something like that. So 3 or 4 point adjustment. You're making a 4-point adjustment off the last time they played. I know they're different teams, but that is a major adjustment. But to me, it's Chiefs. Maybe you can find a cheap money line. I don't know what the cheapest money line out there. -145, -150. It's probably going to be the way I play it here.
Yeah, would be I would not lay 3. I would definitely do money line if I was doing Chiefs here in this situation. So no disagreement there with me. Let's move on to the Friday game, which is kind of crazy. The Packers are playing the Eagles, and they're playing it in Brazil, man, of all places. And I thought that was a head scratcher for me when I found out that game was going to happen months and months ago. But either way, the Eagles are laying -2.5. It's close to -110. Total of 49. Will, what are your thoughts?
Be lean towards the over. I just think that Philly, a lot of questions. You always have to worry about the surfaces when you're playing in these stadiums where they're not used to hosting, NFL games. But the Packers were bad against the run. The Eagles were bad against the pass. Now the Green Bay pass attack comes to town, or you have to face that group of receivers, that quarterback. And meanwhile, Green Bay, that run defense gets potentially exposed with Hurts, with Barkley, with that good offensive line. So to me, this is last team with the ball kind of game, 27-24, field goal game. I don't show a lot of value. I don't feel like there's a ton of value on the side, but I do look at it over here. I think both teams can have some success on offense.
Yeah, it's there could be a lot of offense. It just does. I don't know the field in Sao Paulo that well, and I don't think I'm going to know it until I watch a little bit of the game. Possibly a live betting situation too. I just feel like the Eagles still have championship pedigree in a way, and I guess that's why you have them as the favorite. I do like some of the moves, like Vic Fangio, Kellen Moore as their coordinators, and I always thought that was a problem. Sirianni might be a good head coach, but it seems like he needs some coordinators to help back him up a little bit. Will, and I have no disagreement with the spread. I think I'm more like -275, 2.75 anyway with the Eagles, but it's just not enough for me to get there. Fun game to watch. Maybe we can find a couple prop bets in this situation too.
Sure.
I'll be looking for props in some of these games.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be competing against we had a couple Friday night college football games too. So
yeah,
in the NFL, it's just more and more. They add days of the week. There's rumors that they're going to add a Labor Day possibly start and move it up a weekend. So in the NFL, it's just they want all the real estate they can get.
Yeah, 100% they do. They're might even call them greedy a little bit. So there you go. They certainly know how to make money, being that there's no competition in town. Let's talk about Sunday. Actually, then we have the Jaguars going to Miami. And Miami, I'm seeing them -3.5 in a lot of books, but there's definitely pressure coming back on it. There's definitely some Jaguars money, a little bit juiced on Bet Online here. Looking at the. Let's see here. Let's look at the DraftKings. I'm trying to find it. Of course, it's not popping up in front of me. 3.5. Yep, same deal. -122 plus 3.5 on the Jaguars side. What about this game? We have a total of 49 played in Miami.
Be leaning towards Miami. I don't know if I'm going to bet it. 3.5 would be a pass at 3. It would be Miami or nothing for me. just because I do think they're a really good regular season team, and you have to have concerns about Miami staying healthy over the course of a season. Kind of a brittle, I don't know, soft is the right word. It might be a harsh word, but a fair word. When like Waddle, Hill, Armstead, they're always all banged up. Tua, look, he was healthy last year, but that hasn't been his MO going forward. But here, look, week one, he's going to be. These guys are going to be healthy, which is a positive, and they're just a really good regular season team. Now, you get them outdoors later in the season, or you get them against the defense that can make Tua uncomfortable. They fold. We know they fold, but this is their environment, and they really thrive in their environment. They're kind of a bully team where when you can't intimidate them, when you can't make them play in the cold, when you can't put pressure on Tua, they're going to just spread the ball around, and you're going to use their speed, and they're going to score a ton of points. So I would expect them to do the same. So either be Miami -3, maybe a Miami team total over, but it would be Miami or nothing for me.
Yeah, they haven't played since 2021, and a lot of changes since then. The Jaguars won by 3 points in that situation. Can't even really look back and make good decisions when coaches were completely different, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I have -3 Miami, so I very slightly into Jacksonville, but it's nothing I want to get involved in right now. I think it's an over game, if anything, and that could be a little tricky too. There's different defense coordinators on both sides of the ball. So Vic Fangio's gone, obviously, out of Miami, and the Jaguars have a new one as well. So that's going to be interesting. Let's move on to the next game. My Bears, my friend, are hosting the Titans, and the Titans. This thing's been back and forth from 4.5 to 4. You can probably shop around right now, Will, and find yourself a better number. Obviously, don't lay 4.5. Take 4.5 or lay 4 in this situation. I don't see a lot of movement. I think it's just kind of stick around here. I think there's two sides that are kind of fighting this one out. I see a total of 44.5. Starting to move towards the over a little bit. I know there's been sharper money on the over. Anything on this game?
Not really. I would lean towards the Bears. I don't love laying points with a rookie quarterback. We've all heard that stat. A number 1 overall pick at quarterback hasn't won their first game, I think, since 2002 in David Carr. So maybe that streak is bound to to end here. I'm curious what you think, being a Bears guy. We always hear this all spring and all summer. Hey, these teams are going to get the bump from Hard Knocks. There's going to be more enthusiasm. I haven't gotten the sense we've gotten any bump from Hard Knocks. I think it's just, I don't know how much of it you've watched, if any. It's been sort of a bland edition. Eberflus is kind of bland. There's not a lot of big personalities. It's not like the Lions a couple years ago where you watch the Lions and you want to run through a wall for Dan Campbell. You're like, man, this team's going in the right direction. This team, they just, I don't know. There hasn't been a lot of buzz, a lot of juice for this Hard Knocks, and Hard Knocks affecting the betting market like a lot of people thought. I just don't think that's happened.
No, it hasn't, because the Bears would have been much bigger favorites, I think. This is I have the Bears as a close to average team just because they did improve their defense last year, and I guess Caleb Williams is supposed to be the man. They have good receivers. They're spending money. It's like I don't have them like anything like the Texans level, but I have them close to average. But I still have the Titans pretty below average, and I'm not understanding with the new coach there, Allen, why it makes this big of a difference. I know that they did pick up some nice pieces on defense, but I'm not a Will Levis fan. I don't believe in him. They're going to put a lot of pressure on him throwing the ball this year. They still got guys like DeAndre Hopkins there catching the ball, and maybe he can be a big playmaker for you. But my number's wrong. My number's wrong according to the market anyway, and it scares me because I have the Bears more of a 7-point favorite personally, and it's embarrassing to say that almost. But is it enough for me to get to the window? I don't know, because like you said, Caleb Williams, new quarterback, too much hype in some situations. I did not watch March Hard Knocks. I tried to, but I hate reality shows, Will. And after, even though they're my Bears, I couldn't finish episode 1, and I'm just like, this is bullcrap. I'm not watching it, and I didn't watch it since. So,
you didn't miss much. It was a little bland. You didn't miss much. And I usually like that. And there's so much NFL like live reality show content out there, like with the Netflix shows and the Hard Knocks off season with the Giants, Hard Knocks in season. It's just, it has become a little watered down.
Okay. Well, good to know. It's just, I guess ever since reality shows ruined my fun like Seinfeld type sitcoms, I've always had a bad taste in my mouth since then. So maybe that's why. Steelers Falcons. This is a line that's been moving because the Falcons have been taking a lot of money. This thing was with the 2 range maybe 2 weeks ago, and now it's all the way up to -3.5. Obviously, Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Well, it's getting far. If you were going to take the Falcons, don't do it now. Slap yourself for not doing it before. But at this point, the only way I could look is the Steelers. But at the same time, man, the Steelers had a quarterback battle in the preseason that really did not turn out well.
More of like a quarterback pillow fight between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Look, you don't want to overreact to preseason, but it looked bad for Wilson. He looked washed. He looked like he couldn't move. And maybe there's issues offensive line. They could certainly use another receiver. And to me, look, you said it best. You missed the boat with Atlanta. Now maybe you can wait in game and Pittsburgh goes up 3-0 or gets a couple first downs. You can get the 3 or the 2.5 or take Atlanta on a money line. I like the under. I just think Wilson is going to protect the ball. He's very turnover averse, but he's not going to really move the ball. Meanwhile, Atlanta with Cousins, 36, 37, whatever he is, coming off an Achilles injury against a pretty good pass rush. Maybe they're a little conservative. He hasn't played in the preseason. So, and look, you've got 2 coaches that are defensive first, defensive minded, and most coaches now 4th and 2 from the 50. Hey, we're going to go for it. Tomlin, Raheem Morris, those are 2 guys. Maybe they'll punt and try to pin you at your own 6 and you'll play kickball for a little bit. So to me, I think a lot adds up to an under. I could see a 20-17, 21-20 type of game. I like the under here.
Problem with me is I haven't seen Cousins in this offense at all. I have no idea what to expect. My number is 3.25, and that's why I didn't bet it when it was at 2.5. So I'm just saying I'm definitely staying off it now, but nothing for me in this game right now. And you're right, an under might be the best look because I could see this being a big Bijan Robinson and possibly Najee Harris game. So there you go. Carolina Panthers, Saints -4. Saints -4 total, 41.5. Very low total. I'm passing on this one, Will. I really don't even have anything to say about this one. You?
On to the next game.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Vikings-Giants. Now, we already mentioned that the Vikings took -2. They're up to -2. They took money. The total's at 41 in this situation. Pretty dang low total, but, man, I feel like now Dayball's calling plays. You can see all kinds of different things. You can see some scoring. You can see a pick six. I almost think this total's a little bit too low for me, Will.
I like Minnesota. I just think that this is the simplest handicap I'll give all year. They just have much better players than the Giants. Giants have a good coach in Dable. They've got what looks like he's going to be a dynamic receiver in Malik Neighbors. What else do they have? Because they lose Barkley. That's a running back. Not many running backs matter. He did. And shaky offensive line. And I don't like the idea of Daniel Jones behind a bad offensive line against the blitz schemes, the blitz pressures of Brian Flores. I just think that's a recipe for disaster. I could see, like you said, pick six, fumbles for touchdowns. I think Flores could create some turnovers. So maybe if you look at these books and look, with these expansive menus now, you could probably find yes or no, will there be a defensive score? If you could find a fat price on yes, a defensive score, this might be a game where, hey, Darnold could throw one to the other team. Jones could throw one to the other team. Yes, defensive score might be one to look for, but I like Minnesota here.
All right, Minnesota for Will. Denver Broncos versus Seattle Seahawks. Seattle is -6, total 41.5.
Seattle's taking some money here. They've gotten bet. I don't want to take the rookie quarterback on the road. I think Seattle's a pretty good team. That's a tough place to play. And I think home crowd, I'm curious what you think of this. Home field advantage, I think, is enhanced in week one because everyone's excited. There's enthusiasm for every team. So, especially some of these lesser teams, week 5, week 6, week 8, maybe you don't get the home crowd, but week 1, everyone's fired up. Everyone thinks their team is good. I think that enhances the home field advantage week 1 in Seattle. That home field has been diminished over the years, but I think this, year with a new coach, some renewed enthusiasm, a rookie quarterback, I want no part of Nick. So to me, it'd be Seattle or pass here.
Yeah, Seattle or pass. Not for me. Seattle or pass for Will. I like Denver a little bit at the +6. Yeah, I do. And I was kind of leading into that when I thought Denver was a little underrated. New coaches do not really perform well week 1. Now, I had the stat before. I have to dig it up. Hopefully, I'll tweet it out. But a brand new coach coming into a situation, and the first year, it usually does not turn out great from an ATS perspective or from a win-loss perspective. Now, I know Denver's got all of these kind of problems, but there's still a few playmakers there in Javonte Williams. They got a couple receivers there. Jetty, obviously. Sutton. They're actually both healthy, Will. So, until they get hurt, I kind of look at this as just a little bit too big of a spread for week 1 game. Now, I absolutely could be wrong, and Mike McDonald could definitely possibly take this team and start running. from what happened last year, but just a few too many points for me. I don't have Seattle that difference of a power rating in this situation. I like Seattle secondary. I like that defensive pick that they got in Murphy, but I still think Denver with a Bo Nix, who has played up there in Seattle a few times against Washington, obviously up in Oregon. It's almost kind of like his side of the country, over the past year and a half. Now, he did play for Auburn, I know that. But 6 is a little too much for me, so I'm taking Denver in this situation. Let's move on to the Raiders-Chargers. Chargers now -3. Total was 40. What about you? What do you got in this game?
I think the Chargers win the game, but this game is in LA, and that's a Chargers home game. But, I mean, if you know anything about these teams, you're probably going to get, 70, 80% Raiders fans there. And Herbert with the foot, I don't know how big of a factor it is, but I don't love the idea that he hasn't been able to practice with the new players on the team and just be part of, the group getting the reps with the first team. So every Charger game is close. I would need the 3.5 to pull the trigger on the Raiders. I expect the Chargers to win, but it's dog or pass. And, I mentioned Seattle or pass in the last game, and it applies to this game. I have a very hard time laying significant points in week 1. I hate laying points in general.
Sure.
But week 1, we think we know, but we don't. And these teams don't play in the preseason. This is almost an extension of the preseason. It's very rare that I would lay points, lay a field goal or above, in a regular season week 1. If I like the favorite, maybe I'll find a team total to play over. I'll play a money line. That minus sign in week 1 really, really keeps me off of some games.
I'm afraid to lay over 3 too in week 1, and no disagreement there. This situation, I already took the 3.5, and that was a week or two ago, Will, and now it's 3. There's nothing I can do with it now at 3, in my opinion. Now the Raiders should have a home field advantage in LA, but according to the hype with the Chargers now with the new coach, I think that probably evens it out somewhat. I still expect to see a ton of Raiders fans, though. I didn't see any Herbert really in the preseason. I don't know what to expect. I know the Chargers, both teams looked really bad in the preseason. But 3.5 is too much. You remember last year when the Raiders scored 50 points in the first half against the Chargers, and that was with Easton Stick, dude. Holy cow, was that just an absolute utter embarrassment. And you might want to say, oh, this is a revenge game for the Chargers. I'm going to say no, it's not a revenge game because they have a new coach now. It's not like the coach was there. Justin Herbert was hurt. They're not thinking revenge. This is just a new dynasty, possibly dynasty in the making, let's say. A new very good hire to be excited about, but it's not a revenge game in my opinion. So I'm going to completely throw that angle out, but I'm still going to give you a lean at the Raiders at +3. But if you didn't get the 3.5, I'm not going to say to make a play on it. We missed a couple from the earlier games. So quick, Cardinals, Buffalo, Bills. Buffalo's -6.5 now. Total's 48. Now, Will, I was kicking myself. Well, I guess I can kick myself a little bit. It was 5.5, and my numbers are way off. I think I have the Bills -9. But a couple things with the Bills just have been bugging me. First of all, they have a complete new set of wide receivers, so I don't know what to expect from that aspect. Josh Allen, oh God, he's so yin and yang sometimes, Will. There's teams that they should have blown away, like the Giants last year, and they barely squeaked out that one. And then you got this Cardinals team kind of with the backs against the wall. You remember how people were all down on the Cardinals last year, and they almost beat Washington outright in that first year without Kyler Murray. I feel like the Cardinals are going to come to play. So even though my numbers say the Bills, I'm passing on this one, Will.
Yeah, easy pass for me. Arizona, certainly backdoor potential. People, if that's 6.5, 6, that's in somewhat the teaser range. Although it's 6, you're probably better off just playing a money line. It's not the best way to use the teaser at 6. So dog or pass for me. All
right, Patriots, Bengals. Now this one with the Jamar Chase news. Is he actually really hurt, or is it just more contract?
Man, this is a sore subject for me because doing these shows all summer, I get these rundowns, and it's Ayuk contract holdout, Chase. I hate the contract discussion, Dak's contract. To me, these guys, it usually gets ironed out. I like to bet to try and discern who's going to get how much money, and this guy is holding out for more money. Usually, it very rarely does it not work itself out where these guys are on the field. So I don't know. I would expect Chase to be out there. I think he's fine. We've seen Cincy, I think, take some money. It's funny. It went from 9 down to 7.5. I think we're back up to some 8, 8.5. Certainly a good teaser range here for Cincy if you want to find a dance partner with with like the Colts or the Cowboys, I would expect Cincy to win. This is one where, I don't love laying points, but I want no part of New England.
Funny, we got a fantasy football question. That's for the Monday night show, my man. I would not trade Achin for Chase. No. I just keep your Achin for now. The truth is that Chase is drafted a lot higher, but now with all this contract stuff, I had to drop in my rankings a little bit. But I probably wouldn't even bother dealing with that. But definitely great questions for the Monday night show that we have for fantasy. So next game, we have the Houston Texans at the Colts. And the Colts is +3. The total is 48.5. I was looking at the Colts as a teaser leg, and now more money's coming in on Texans, which I kind of expected. So now I'm kind of looking more at the Colts as an actual play, Will. It's at -115 now. I think the Texans are fantastic, but these Colts are not going to let this going to be a margin game, in my opinion. 3 still feels a little light, but I still have some options. I know what the Texans signed for. Everyone knows it. They're hyped as all hype can be. I'm not a big Anthony Richardson guy, but he is coming in healthy. It's just a division game when you look towards the dog, Will. I lean the Colts, and I could possibly see myself taking them.
Yep, Colts are nothing. Home dog, good coach, a talented quarterback. I haven't loved everything I've read this summer about Richardson and the joint practice, him being inaccurate. But I think Steichen's a guy who knows how to unlock Richardson. Pretty good offensive line, defensive line. It would be a lean towards the Colts, but nothing I've played so far.
All right, nothing you played on the Colts so far. Let's move on to we already covered Jacksonville. Let's move on to the Cowboys versus the Browns. Browns -2.5, total 40.5. Pretty low total. What are your thoughts on this one?
Under. And again, Cowboys a good teaser leg. We haven't seen Dak really all summer. There's been whispers about his foot. He's in a walking boot. Watson, we never know what's going on. Now, he was like 5-1 as a starter last year, but it's always something with the shoulder or he's banged up. So 2 quarterbacks where who knows how sharp they are. 2 pretty good defenses. Cleveland defense at home was really good. I think Zimmer will help the Cowboys defense. I do think. Look, I didn't love Dallas's offseason, but I do think Zimmer will help them, and I do think Dallas is just being dismissed a little bit. I mean, people are just penciling Philly in to win the division. Look, I'm guilty of it too. I would pick Philly to win the division too, but it's kind of crazy how nobody has picked Dallas to win the division after 3 straight 12-win seasons. Under, I think this will be a little bit of a slog, defensive battle. I think this is under at 42. I don't know if I get any lower. Is there still a 42 out there? Do you have it in front of you?
It's 40.5 at DraftKings. So
over. Give me over 40.5. I didn't realize. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it moved that much. 40.5. It's too low. I get why the line movement. 40.5 is too low.
All right. I love it. I'll write you down for that. So over 40.5 in this game. I don't know why Dallas is +2.5. I know that they have a different offensive line, kind of like the Ravens, but at the same time, I mean, these guys know their dogs, and Deshaun Watson hasn't showed me anything in Cleveland except that he can't handle the pressure and he's got some mental issues. Without Flacco, I think it's kind of weird too. They had to get rid of Flacco so the crowd's not screaming for him. I have Dallas power rated higher than the Browns. I don't understand why this is 2.5. This is going to be a teaser leg for me. I just don't know who I'm partnering with. You obviously have the Bengals, but what I didn't say about the Bengals earlier when we brought up that game, they are only 1-4 their last 5 openers, and there's quite a few with Burrow there. And that one was a tie against the Vikings that they won in overtime back in like 2020 or 21. Will, so I don't trust the Bengals to win. I don't even like the Bengals as a survivor play. But I'm going to find a partner with Dallas just because I think they still have CeeDee Lamb. They still have a very good defense. They still got Micah Parsons over there. They all want to eat. They all want money. They got to show up a little bit. This could be just a disgustingly running game, but at the same time, Dallas does play to the over, so I do understand your play on that one. Commanders, Buccaneers. Buccaneers -3.5, total 44. So this one's bouncing back and forth, Will, and I talked about this one. I took the Tampa Bay Bucks, and I'm going to make this a play for this podcast, along with my Denver +6 and Baltimore +3. I just think that this line is way off. I'm going to say shop around for a 3 because there's 3s out there right now, and I'm willing to lay Probably up to minus 125. Here's a 3 minus 118 at Bet Online. Okay. So there are threes out there. I have Washington still a bad team, and they have a new coach. I've never been a Dan Quinn guy. I always thought the reason they went to the Super Bowl was because of the talent and Kyle Shanahan being the offense coordinator. I almost think he's a little bit fraudulent. I know he's a pretty good defense coordinator, but they still have no talent on defense. They have a quarterback now that's a rookie kind of coming in. I think Tampa Bay should be winning with margin, and Tampa Bay has a bunch of guys you can trust there. They're an older team now, but they're a bunch of guys you can trust. I have Tampa Bay like -7. So
Wow.
I know it's embarrassing. Like there's a couple games that I'm embarrassingly off on, Will, but this is one of them. And if I need to upgrade the Commanders from absolute suckage to close to average, then so be it. But right now, I'm taking the Bucks at the -3.
Didn't do anything with it. Would actually probably look towards another over here just because I think Tampa can throw it. I think you can throw it on Tampa. So Tampa's going to be an interesting team in terms of live betting all year where, hey, if they get down big or they get up big, like you could see some massive comebacks because I think they can keep you in the game with their secondary, and I think their passing game is going to be pretty good. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they duplicate last year in terms of, I mean, look, they were a bounce of the ball away from getting to an NFC title game, which is just insane when you think about it and where they were to start the season, a win total of 5.5 or 6 or something like that. But it will be a lean towards the over, nothing else.
Yeah. Lean towards the over. I totally get that. Yeah, I'm just still sticking with Tampa here. I don't know what their defense is going to be like, and I know that they were the playoff team that probably wasn't the 7th best team in the NFC last year, but I still have Washington in the doldrums until they prove me wrong. They hire a coach that I disagreed with, so I'm going to stick with that one. Night game: Rams versus Lions. Lions -3.5. Total is 50.5. Will, anything in this one?
Dog or pass. To me, it's just last team with the ball. I love this Lions team. I think there's room for them to get better. When you look at their core, this is a team, again, you talk about what could have, should have happened in the playoffs. This team should have been in the Super Bowl. I can't kill Campbell too much. Maybe would have kicked one of those field goals, but again, in hindsight, the guy Reynolds dropped the ball. If he catches it, nobody's talking about the decisions. Neither here nor there. All of their good players, all of their core, their nucleus, Gibbs, Laporta, St. Brown, Jamison Williams, those guys, Penny Sewell, those guys are all 25 and under. I mean, there's room for these guys to even go up another level. So I like this Lions team. That being said, the Rams are a good offensive team. You're going to give McVay time to scheme. This is a rematch of the playoff game where, if you remember, this game looked like it was going to be like 41-38, just a complete shootout. Nobody could stop anybody in the first half. Then the scoring just died in the second half, and it stayed under. But it'd be dog or pass. I think this is the last team with the ball wins. If you're down 10 and the Rams, back door will be open. I'm just not – I can't lay 3. I'm sure you feel the same way. I hate laying 3.5. I hate it. I almost it's almost counterintuitive where I've heard bookmakers say this, where it's like you probably should lay the 3.5 more than you think because the books are almost daring you to take the dog. That being said, 3.5 is a tough number to lay for me.
My number is -4.25, so I'm not laying 3.5 either. That's just, there's absolutely no man's land I'm in right now between the 3 and the 6. So, this is very backdoorable for a coach like Sean McVay. And I'll tell you this. The Rams have been really covering a lot these last games. They only lost by 1 in the playoffs, 24-23 last year. That was a nail biter for Lions fans. And 28-19, they won in 2021. You have to go way back to 2012 since the Lions actually beat them by more than 3 points. I look at some head-to-head. Obviously, it's a lot more important when it's the same coach and quarterback. But, I can't do nothing with it with foreign order. But I think we're going to learn a lot from this game. I think this could be a good game for some props, too. Puka Nacua might get us hyped up a lot in this game, and I would consider doing an under prop on him. I think he's been also overdrafted in fantasy, and you might be able to get like a Montgomery prop because I think Montgomery is still going to get a lot of touches over Gibbs. Gibbs was kind of hurt in the preseason, so I'm going to be targeting this a little bit for the prop bets. Now, finally, let's move on to the Jets versus the Niners, and the Niners are -4.5, total 44. Will. My number's -5. I've never been off -5. I've never been able to bet it. I know that a group came in at -3.5 today when this was uncertainty with the left tackle and a couple other guys there. But everyone's playing for the Niners. They're kind of coming in. They're looking like for revenge this year. Same time, the Niners have some trouble coming out of the gate. And this is one of those Aaron Rodgers situations where Aaron Rodgers is from the Bay Area. He feels bad that the Niners didn't draft him. You hear that a lot when he plays the Niners, right? But is that going to get him motivated to play? I think this is a pretty good spread. I'm staying away from it. Total 44.
Yeah, and you always hear that Aaron Rodgers, San Francisco 49ers narrative. The 49ers have kicked his butt plenty of times. Some of those Green Bay teams got destroyed. And it wasn't really Rodgers' fault. Just San Francisco would run it down their throat. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I've been high on the Jets all summer, all year. I just think Rodgers, this idea that he's washed because he didn't play well 2 years ago. Well, he's playing with a fractured thumb 2 years ago and bad ribs. And last year we know what happened. I think the offensive line's much improved. They got weapons on offense. I think they're filthy on defense. I'll take the points here with the Jets. And if you do think they can win, 15-1 to be the last undefeated team, because if they can win this game, the rest of their schedule, the first 6 or 7 weeks, is a lot of Titans and Steelers and Broncos and Vikings. They get the Bills at home. There's a path for 5, 6, 7-0 at 15-1. If you do like the Jets here, I think it's worth just a small bet, a small part of your bet, or a separate bet on the Jets to be the last undefeated team, because the schedule after this gets pretty favorable.
Are you making Jets play at 4.5?
Jets plus 4.5. JETS.
All right, baby. JETS plus 4.5. So I can't wait to see you and Chris after this game is over with. Moving on to a question. We got a question from JDoc82. Which NFL team is a lock for Week 1? Sick of early strikes in Survivor Week 1. We don't use locks really ever. But the truth is, this is the NFL, man. Anything freaking can happen. And what's funny is that Survivor is one thing. You can't think about the money. And my answer would be, and I'll ask you, of course, Will, after this, is that do you really care about going out Week 1 when you're most likely going to go out anyway? It's like you have to understand that you're trying to play to win, and sometimes it's going to take some of the stress out if it's for any money. I'm playing Survivor, the big one, and I'm not picking the Bengals in Week 1 because I don't trust them. They're 1-4. The first week, and this Chase thing, they lost their offensive coordinator. There's just so many red flags with the Bengals. I'm not big on Seattle, as you know. I think they do probably win by 3, but I would say Seattle, Buffalo's got some issues at the -6.5. To be honest with you, I'm probably going right back to Tampa myself. I think there's not going to be a lot of great opportunities for me to use Tampa in this division. I think maybe this one, being that they're playing a new coach with a brand new team, and they're coming off of as a playoff team last year, might be the position for me. So I'm kind of looking towards Tampa myself. But there's definitely no for sure plays, and I think this Week 1 is a little tricky. What about you, Will?
Oh, it's super tricky, and if you're not going to take Cincy, yeah, you're certainly setting yourself up for the possibility of losing this. Haven't locked it in yet. I think I'm going to go Minnesota, though. Be a little different.
Okay, look at that. I mean, so that's even more contrarian than me. A road team at -2 that's that. I love that. That's funner, because you're not going to use the Vikings a ton either this year. But there you go. The Giants are, Tony Daboll now calling plays. Those announced kind of late. A lot of red flags with the Giants still, and I'm not a big Daniel Jones guy at all. So I understand that. And that's how you win Survivor. You hope for all these big upsets to come through. There's nothing that tells me that the Bengals should be, completely trusted. I think it's a highly variant game. It's they never come out, and so that's the first one you got to look at is why you're not doing something. And the truth is people are going to use the Bengals and they're going to be one of the biggest teaser legs. I'm not even going to tease them so to -6. So I say try to stay contrarian a little bit, yet try to find something that you can probably get a pretty good handicap on, or you have a pretty good feel on, like Will with Minnesota. So that brings us to our next segment, beer money bets. So I'm kind of bringing this new this year, and it's just anything. And you kind of just gave us one, Will. I'm wondering if you're sticking with that one. Any shot that's more than like 2 or 3, over 3-1, let's say. And it could be a money line this week. It could be any future. We're going to have these Heisman odds up forever. We're going to have a lot of these awards odds up. What do you like for like a beer money bet today?
Yeah, I'll go back to the one I use. I think it's the best one. I don't want to give out something just to give it out. I do think there's value in Jets 15-1 to be the last undefeated team, because if you do win that Monday night, that's not like it gets cut in half or something like that. That number, that 15-1, probably goes to like 3 or 4-1 if they could ever beat San Francisco. So Jets last undefeated is one I like.
Jets last undefeated. That's a nice price on that. Wow. So they're going to be rolling through the season possibly here. You're going to find out week 1. that's the fun part about it. You're going to find out week 1.
Survivor thing though, it's like the Survivor, where hey, you take your medicine week 1, and if you can survive that, you can come out the other side and have some great value on your ticket.
Absolutely. I'm going to do one that I think you talked about, Will, like a month or so ago, and I don't remember if that was on Bear Bets or if that was on the Should Have Bet More podcast. But I'm going with Damar Hamlin at 100-1 for the comeback player of the year. Well, here's the thing.
No, I get it. I get it. I'm going to bet this before you move this number.
I said beer money, but I'm sure you're going to put more than beer money on it. But dude, maybe I should. Here's the thing. He didn't play enough last year to be a come-up player, but his story is still the best. It's still the best because guess what? Aaron Rodgers, Justin Herbert, and Burrow, they're all going to have great years. So they're going to be like, oh, we have to pick one of these. They're going to be like, no, let's just get out of this category. And it's going to go back to Damar Hamlin plays a full season of football for Buffalo after dying on the field. I think we're just a year too early on this last year, many of us, and the odds makers. 100-1? It's still a great story, Will. Let's do it.
I'm not only going to bet that. If you hear me on other shows give it out, I will give you credit for it. But I've talked about the same one, and I think you just gave me credit for it. So you're stealing my play, and I'm stealing it back from you. We're just going to keep stealing it from each other. I like it. I think there's something to it. And this award is so all over the place where nobody knows what anybody's thinking. I know they've defined it a little more with criteria, but it's still so there's still so much gray area with it that taking a shot at 100-1, and this book I'm looking at now, I don't even know if he's got him listed. So where did you bet that so I can find it? I love it.
Yeah, I got it at DraftKings. It was not listed at FanDuel, so I got DraftKings. So we can.
I don't understand these odds sometimes. How is Joe Flacco listed again? How is he going to win comeback player of the year 2 years in a row?
So they can take your money, man. That's why. There's no reason. There's no way they do that. You come back from coming back. The only excuse is like, oh, you only played 4 games. The dude better have an MVP season if that's the case. You know that's absolutely ridiculous.
It's insane.
I'm gonna check Hamlin here. Still 100-1 on DraftKings. So
that's a good bet. That's a bet.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, Will, we love you here. Where could our listeners get your wonderful information, media, and where could they listen to some of the times you're on as a guest, as well as your Should Have Bet More podcast?
Yeah, at Not the Will Hill on Twitter. Bear Bets podcast for Fox Sports. I do some writing work for Fox Sports. Then Should Have Bet More podcast Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So anytime I'm on yours, that usually means a home and home is coming, and I'm going to be hitting up you for a spot on yours, and VSiN on a few times a week. So check me out on VSiN.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys check out Will if you haven't already. Will, enjoy the weekend and best of luck in your plays.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Now it's time for our Refuse to Lose teaser. That went 11-7 last year. We're going with the Cowboys, taking them to all the way up to +8. I don't think they should be dogs, yet they could lose by 3 still in this situation. You know, I love the Cleveland Browns defense. I just cannot stand their offense right now. I think Deshaun Watson has problems. I think Dak Prescott has ways of putting points on this good defense. CeeDee Lamb is just an absolute beast. Ezekiel Elliott's back running the football. I just think the Cowboys are just too good to not cover 8.5 in this situation. And I'm also pairing them with the Colts, who's a home dog here. Colts +2.5 to +8.5, we'll call it. I know they're +3s in a few books, but I don't like laying -130 on teasers like on DraftKings, so you find your better books. Really like the fact that this team is fighting a division game week 1. Division dogs week 1 do extremely well. I can see Shane Steichen doing enough to keep it within 8.5 points. I think CJ Stroud is fantastic, but it's not like the Colts are not expecting this team, as this is a division game, I should say. Even though my numbers have the Colts dogs as all the way up to 4.25 points, still I like the Colts when it comes to the 8.5, just based upon some of these trends. So we're going to take this teaser, Refuse to Lose teaser all the way. First teaser of the week, 2 stars.
Kip, I reckon you know a lot about cyberspace. You ever come across anything like time travel?
Now it is time for
The Sharp Side of the Force.
Sharp Side of the Force is brought to you by BetMGM. For an up to $1,500 bonus, please visit theoddsbreakers.com. Click Bet Now. Terms, conditions, and location apply. And especially if you're in one of those states that has just allowed sports betting, Virginia, North Carolina, great to have a BetMGM account. All right, let's go for some sharp money right now. And unfortunately, the Action Network, their numbers are a little bit wrong here. So I had to kind of combine them with some other locations, which is frustrating because I pay the Action Network and Sports Insights for this. So I sent them a message. But anyways, I was able to get some together for you. There's sharp money for college, week 2. Kentucky hosting South Carolina, -10 to -10.5, 59% of the tickets and 83% of the money. UAB at Louisiana Monroe, -12 to -13.5 for UAB, 44% tickets and 59% of the money. Nebraska hosting Colorado, -7 to -7.5 for Nebraska, 60% tickets, 75% of the money. Clemson hosting Appalachian State, -17 to -17.5, 61% of the tickets and 84% of the money on App State. And Baylor, +18 down to +14.5, hosting or at Utah. I shouldn't say hosting Utah there, at Utah. 30% of the tickets, 45% of the money. Sharp totals. Iowa State versus Iowa under 36-35. 78% of the tickets, 95% of the money. Boise State versus Oregon over 60.5 to 61.5. 29% of the tickets and 52% of the money. And Mississippi State versus Arizona State over 57 to 60. 64% of the tickets and 78% of the money. Those are 3 that I'm confident on. I'm still waiting on these numbers to get fixed before I release too much. But NFL, we got some sharp money. Falcons -2.5 to -3.5 hosting the Steelers, 27% of the tickets, 62% of the money. And Vikings +1 to -2 at the Giants, 60% of the tickets, 75% of the money. Cardinals +7 down to +6 at the Bills. It went lower, but it kind of got some buyback, 60% of the tickets and 68% of the money on the Cardinals. Texans -1 to -3 hosting, or at the Colts, I should say. 57% of the tickets and 78% of the money. Raiders +3.5 to +3 at the Chargers, which is actually a home game for them. 65% of the tickets and 75% of the money. Sharp totals. Patriots versus Bengals under 42.5 to 41, 12% of the tickets, 42% of the money. Titans versus Bears over 43.5 to 45, 85% of the tickets, 90% of the money. And Raiders versus Chargers under 43 to 40.5, 14% of the tickets and 41% of the money. So those are the ones that I'm confident on. If Action Network is not fixed and Sports Insights not fixed, I will do a different route next week. But anyways, to recap our podcast plays, Will likes the Jets to be the last team undefeated at 15-1 for a beer bet. And I like DeMar Hamlin, comeback player of the year. We both actually like it at 100-1. Will's on the Jets +4.5, Minnesota -2. And he's also on Dallas Cleveland over 40.5. I'm on Tampa Bay -3, -120 for 2.5 stars. Baltimore +3, still there for 2 stars. I gave out a long time ago. Denver +6 at 2.5 stars. And for college, I like Mississippi State ASU over 59.5 for 2 stars. I like Bowling Green +34.5 for 2 stars. And I have my teaser, Cowboys, Colts, tease them both to +8.5 for 2 stars. My friends, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you have any questions for Monday's pod, please feel free to tweet us at The Oddsbreakers. Reach out to us at info@theoddsbreakers.com. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy all the football games and go get some winners.